He was once just a barefoot boy, dancing on the streets so hunger wouldn't win. But now, Cola Lawson is a name the whole city knows. From classrooms to universities, from struggle to success, his journey has been one of hope and courage. And in this final chapter, he will rise higher than ever. Through trials, triumphs, and forgiveness, more than success, his life will become a light for others, giving hope to children who were once like him. This is the unforgettable conclusion to the story that began with one dance. The morning sun shone brightly on the gates of Starlight Academy. Children in neat uniforms filled the playground, their laughter ringing like bells. But this morning was different. As Cola and Amanda stepped into the compound, every eye turned toward them. "Champion! Champion!" the students shouted, their voices rising like a chant. Some clapped, others stomped their feet, and many ran forward to greet him. The same children who once whispered that he did not belong were now hailing him with joy. Cola's cheeks turned red. He remembered the days he sat alone at lunch, the days whispers cut into his heart like knives. Now, the same voices called his name with pride. Amanda, walking beside him with her steady steps, squeezed his hand gently and whispered, "See, they finally recognized what I always knew. You were born for this." But Cola's heart was humble. He lifted his head, smiled shyly, and simply said, "Thank you." He didn't let pride carry him away, because he still remembered the nights under the bridge when no one even knew his name. In class, when Cola walked in, the teacher paused and announced, "Let us welcome our champion." The whole class clapped again. For the first time, Cola felt the warmth of belonging. He was not just a boy from the street anymore. He was a Lawson. He was family. He was somebody. That afternoon, when Richard came to pick them from school, he parked by the gate and watched silently for a moment. Students surrounded Cola and Amanda, clapping, laughing, and calling their names. Cola smiled shyly. Amanda beamed with quiet pride, and Richard's heart softened. As they settled into the car, Richard turned slightly and spoke in his calm, fatherly tone. "My children, the cheers you hear today are sweet, but they will not always last. What will last is the kind of person you choose to be. Honor is not in the crown they place on your head, but in the humility and hard work you carry in your heart. Never forget where you came from, and never stop growing into who God made you to be." Cola lowered his gaze. Amanda squeezed his hand, and both of them nodded silently. Outside, the city moved on, but inside Richard's car, something deeper was planted, a lesson they would carry for the rest of their lives. The Lawson mansion was full of excitement one quiet morning, when Richard made an important announcement. After Cola's birth father suddenly reappeared, Richard decided to take a step that would protect the boy forever. "We will make it official," he said firmly. "Cola, you have always been my son in love, but now the law will recognize it too. No one who once left you behind will ever have the right to take you away again." The courtroom was heavy with silence. Reporters scribbled quickly, guards stood stiff, and the judge's face remained stern. Richard spoke first, his voice steady. "This boy gave my daughter what all the money in the world could not. Her laughter. He is my son in every way. I stand here not as a rich man asking for pity, but as a father asking the law to recognize what love has already decided." The judge turned to Cola. "And you, young man, what do you want?" Cola's throat tightened. For a moment he could not speak. Then, with courage trembling in his voice, he said, "I want to stay with my family, with Amanda, with Richard. They chose me when the world left me behind. I don't want to lose them." Amanda stood suddenly, her voice clear and strong. "He is my brother, not by blood, but by heart. Without him, I would not be walking today." The courtroom fell silent. The gavel struck once, echoing like thunder. In the eyes of the law, I grant full adoption rights to Richard Lawson. From this day forward, this boy shall be known as Cola Lawson, the lawful son of Richard Lawson, and the lawful brother of Amanda Lawson. Tears ran down Amanda's cheeks as she embraced him. Richard bent down, whispering with emotion, "From today, you are mine. No one, not even the past, can take that away." For the first time in his life, Cola felt completely at home. He was no longer just a boy who danced to survive. He was a Lawson, not by pity, not by chance, but by choice. Time moved like the pages of a book, turning quickly. At Starlight Academy, Cola was no longer the timid boy who sat alone. He was now the boy teachers pointed to when they said, "If Cola can rise from the streets to the top of this class, what excuse do the rest of you have?" He studied late into the night, often falling asleep with his head resting on open books. Amanda would giggle when she found him in the morning, pencil still in his hand. But his determination was no joke. He had promised himself that he would make Richard proud, not just in dance, but in academics too. Amanda, too, blossomed. She discovered a love for words. She wrote stories, gave speeches in debates, and surprised everyone with her strong voice. Once, she was the girl who sat silent in a wheelchair, afraid to be seen. Now she declared proudly, "Every step I take is a victory." Her classmates, who once whispered cruelly, began to look at her with admiration, but the growing years were not without trials. Some students still sneered. "He's only Lawson's son by pity," one boy muttered. Another whispered, "Amanda wins debates because of her father's name." The words cut deep, but Amanda and Cola had grown stronger. They lifted each other through every whisper and every glare. At night, when doubt filled their hearts, they reminded each other of Richard's steady voice. "The world will always test you, but the greatest victories are the ones you win quietly inside." In those moments they knew their story was only beginning, and they would not walk it alone. As Cola grew taller and stronger, the streets tried to call him back. This time, not with hunger, but with temptation. Some boys at school whispered, "Why study so hard? You already live in a mansion. Enjoy life." Others teased him with reckless ideas. "You're Lawson's son now." They laughed. "You'll inherit riches. Why stress yourself?" For a moment, Cola wavered. He remembered the cold bridges, the hunger that gnawed at his stomach. Now food was plenty, clothes were fine, and a soft bed was always waiting. Would it really matter if he let go a little? Amanda noticed the heaviness in his eyes. One evening, as they sat together in the garden where their story began, she placed her hand gently on his. "Brother, don't forget who you are. You didn't come this far to throw it away. You once danced to fight hunger. Now you must stand to fight temptation." Cola's chest tightened. The words struck like truth carved in stone. He lifted his head, eyes steady. "I will not waste my past," he whispered. "I will honor this family with my life." From that day, whenever the whispers of temptation came, Cola silenced them with his focus. He chose the harder road, the road of humility, discipline, and strength. And though the world tried to pull him down, he kept walking forward, step by step, knowing he carried not just his dreams, but the legacy of a family who had saved him. The years passed quickly, and before anyone realized it, Cola and Amanda were no longer children. Their days of playground chants and whispered mockery had given way to exams, late-night reading, and the pressure of future dreams. The morning the admission results were released, Amanda burst into Cola's room, her voice shaking with excitement. "Cola, check your email!" she shouted, waving her phone. With trembling hands, Cola opened his laptop. His eyes widened as the words appeared. Congratulations! You have been admitted into Crownfield University, Faculty of Business and Management, Amanda squealed, jumping up and down. You made it! You're going to be a business leader just like Daddy. Before Cola could respond, Amanda lifted her phone high, her smile glowing with pride. And I made it too, in mass communication. For a moment the room was filled with nothing but laughter, joy, and the sound of dreams taking flight. That evening the Lawson mansion was filled with celebration. The garden sparkled with fairy lights, laughter echoed, and Richard's face glowed with pride as he raised a glass. My children, this is more than success. This is proof that scars can become stepping stones. You have turned pain into possibility. I am proud beyond words. University life was a new world. For Cola, it meant crowded lecture halls, long hours in the library, and endless assignments. But he embraced it with focus. Every business course he studied was not just for grades. It was preparation. He knew one day he would help Richard carry the Lawson Group. Amanda blossomed with a fire of her own. She found her voice in journalism, crafting bold articles that challenged minds and delivering debate speeches that stirred hearts. One evening at dinner, she lifted her chin with quiet conviction. Words are power, she said, and I will use mine to fight for truth. Richard's eyes softened with pride as he looked at her. My daughter, he said gently, you will shake the world with your pen. Though whispers still followed them, the siblings no longer cared. They had grown, they had purpose, and every holiday they returned home, Richard's steady words reminded them, wealth is a tool, not a crown. Use it to build, not to destroy. And silently, Cola promised himself that he would use everything he learned, not only to protect the Lawson empire, but to help children who once lived as he had lived. One windy Monday morning, Richard called Cola into his office. His usually calm face was lined with worry. Papers were scattered across his mahogany desk, contracts left open, numbers circled in red ink. Cola! Richard began, his voice heavy. Something is wrong in the company. Contracts are vanishing, and every time we prepare a bid, a rival undercuts us at the last moment. Someone inside is feeding information to our enemies. Cola's eyes widened. But who would betray you, Dad? Richard sighed deeply. That is what I need to find out, and I believe you can help me. The words startled Cola. He was still a university student, still balancing assignments and exams. Yet Richard's tone left no room for doubt. This was no ordinary test. It was his first real step into responsibility. That week, Cola began working part-time as an intern at the Lawson firm. He sat in board meetings, quietly observing every face. He studied files late into the night, watching for patterns others had missed. His sharp eyes, trained by years of survival on the streets, saw details managers overlooked. He noticed something strange. Every time a certain set of documents passed through one senior manager's hands, within days, their rivals would arrive with a suspiciously perfect counterbid. One evening, while reviewing files in the empty office, Cola uncovered hidden email exchanges, secret correspondence that confirmed his suspicion. The betrayer was not a junior clerk, but a man Richard had trusted for years. Cola leaned closer to the laptop, his eyes fixed on the screen. The evidence was clear. Emails that exposed the truth. His chest tightened as he realized what this meant. This secret could shake the company, but he knew it could not stay hidden. The truth had to come out. The next morning he walked into Richard's office, his voice steady despite his racing heart. Dad, he said firmly, laying down the papers. I think I've found the one sabotaging us. Richard scanned the documents, his jaw tightening, his eyes darkening with betrayal. Then slowly, his expression softened as he turned to Cola. My son, he said quietly, you have done more than I asked. You have saved us." For the first time, Cola realized he was no longer just learning. He was already leading. The Lawson Company was safe again. Time passed, and the Lawson name grew stronger, not just in business but in compassion. The campus auditorium was alive with color and excitement. Families filled the seats. Graduates in gowns adjusted their caps nervously, and cameras flashed like stars in the night. In the front row sat Richard Lawson, his face glowing with pride. Today was not just another graduation. It was the day both Lawson children stepped into a new chapter, when the announcer's voice rang out. "Cola Lawson, first-class honors in business and management." The hall erupted in applause. Cola walked across the stage with confidence, his heart pounding as the dean placed the certificate in his hands. In that moment, he remembered the nights he had danced under bridges to survive, the whispers at school, and the long nights bent over his books. Every struggle had led to this moment of triumph. A little later, Amanda's name was called. She rose gracefully, her caramel skin glowing under the lights, as she accepted her degree in mass communication. The applause that followed seemed to join Cola's moment with hers, like two strands of the same story woven together. Then came the highlight of the ceremony. Cola was called forward to deliver the valedictory speech. He stepped to the podium, his cap tilted slightly, his eyes steady. "Once," he began, "I danced in the streets just to fight hunger. Once my sister sat in silence, afraid to be seen. But today, we both stand here because love found us, because family believed in us, because hope never gave up. This is not just my victory, it is ours, and I dedicate it to every child who has ever felt forgotten. Do not give up. Your tomorrow can be brighter than your yesterday." The hall fell silent, then rose to its feet in thunderous applause. Some parents wiped away tears, others clapped until their palms ached. Richard's eyes misted as he whispered, his voice trembling with pride. "That's my son." Beside him, Amanda's smile shone brighter than any light in the room. That evening, the Lawson mansion overflowed with celebration. The garden sparkled with fairy lights, music filled the air, and guests toasted the new graduates. Richard raised his glass, his voice steady but full of emotion. "My children," he said, "you are my greatest investment, not in money, but in love. Cola, you have proven that strength can rise from struggle. Amanda, you have shown that courage can bloom from silence. Together you remind us that true wealth is not in riches, but in resilience, discipline, and kindness." The guests cheered, and laughter danced through the air as fireworks lit the night sky. Side by side, Cola and Amanda stood in silence, watching the colors explode above. Cola whispered, "We've come so far." Amanda's smile glowed as she answered softly, "And we're only beginning." The boy who once danced in the streets and the girl who once sat in silence now stood as champions, siblings, graduates, ready to step boldly into the future. After the graduation ceremony, life opened a new chapter. Cola was no longer just a son. He had become Richard Lawson's partner. Every morning he walked into the tall glass offices of the Lawson Group, carrying not just files but new ideas. Richard would share his wisdom from years of experience, while Cola brought fresh ideas and sharp strategies. Together they reviewed contracts, planned new projects, and met with partners. Richard was proud to see how Cola carried himself, with confidence, yet with the same humility that had always set him apart. The Lawson empire began to grow even stronger. New branches opened, new investments succeeded, and people whispered that the father and son were unstoppable. For Cola, it was more than business. Every step he took beside Richard was proof that he was no longer the boy who danced to survive. He was now a builder, a leader, and a son shaping the future of the Lawson legacy. But Cola's journey did not stop at the boardroom. With Richard's blessing, he began a new mission, the Street to Stars Foundation for Street Children. He poured his time, his energy, and his heart into it. The foundation built safe shelters, offered meals, and most importantly, gave children education and hope. On the opening day, the hall was filled with dozens of ragged children, their eyes filled with fear and uncertainty. Cola stood before them, not in a suit, but in simple clothes. He wanted them to see him as one of their own. "I was once like you," he said softly, his voice breaking. "I slept under bridges. I begged for food. I danced so hunger wouldn't win. I know what it feels like to be invisible. But hear me today. You are not invisible anymore. You are seen. You are loved. And from this day, you have a home." The children stared at him in silence. Then, slowly, a few small claps began to echo in the hall. One by one, more hands joined, until the sound swelled into cheers that filled the room. For the first time, the children's faces carried something new. Hope. Over time, the foundation grew. Classrooms were built. Meals were served daily. Dance sessions filled the courtyard with laughter. Children who once begged at traffic lights now raised their hands in lessons, learning to read and write. One little boy tugged at Cola's sleeve one afternoon and whispered, "Sir, will I ever be like you?" Cola bent down, smiling warmly. "You'll be greater than me, because you will never have to walk alone the way I did." Amanda also found her role. She used her gift of words to give the foundation a voice. She wrote powerful articles, shared the children's stories, and spoke at schools and events. Her work drew in donors and opened doors. Over time, Amanda rose to become a respected international journalist, her name known far beyond the city. Yet no matter how far her words carried, she always carried the foundation in her heart. Because of her, the Street to Stars Foundation became not just a local shelter, but a beacon of hope across the world. Cola too rose in influence. He became a respected business leader, working side by side with Richard, to expand the Lawson Group while using his success to fuel the foundation. Where once he danced to survive, now he built to rescue, and his name became a symbol of resilience and hope. Together, Cola and Amanda carried the Lawson legacy into the future. One with vision, the other with voice. One evening, Richard, now older, sat in the garden watching his children. His heart swelled with pride, his eyes soft with peace. He called them close, his voice gentle. "When your mother died," he began, his tone trembling with memory, "I thought my world had ended. Amanda, you were my reason to keep breathing. And through you, God gave me Cola, a son who healed our broken laughter." Amanda leaned closer, her eyes shining with tears. "Daddy, you gave us strength. You believed in us when the world doubted." Cola knelt by his side, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Dad, everything I am I owe to you. You gave me a name, a home, and a future. I promise, I will carry this legacy forward. The Lawson name will not only be known for wealth, it will be known for love." Richard smiled, his eyes misty as he reached for their hands. "Then my work is done. The Lawson legacy is safe, not in buildings or money, but in the lives you will touch." As the evening breeze rustled the trees, Amanda stood suddenly and laughed through her tears. "From now on, this garden isn't just a garden. It is our history book. Every laugh, every tear, every dance is written here." They all laughed. Moved by the memory, Cola began to dance lightly across the grass. Amanda clapped in rhythm. Richard chuckled softly, and the mansion rang with the sound of laughter and love. In that moment, the past and present flowed together. The barefoot boy, the once paralyzed girl, and the father who once grieved were now a family, bound not by blood, but by choice, sacrifice, and love. One day, during a live TV interview, a journalist sneered, "Cola, critics argue that your foundation is more about publicity than impact. Others question whether a former street boy can truly lead. How do you answer them?" The audience waited for him to stumble. Amanda sat nearby, her hands clenched in worry. But Cola's voice was calm and steady. "I understand their doubts. But I don't lead with titles or wealth. I lead with experience. I was a street boy. I know what hunger feels like. what it means to sleep under a bridge, what it means to be invisible. That is why this foundation is not a project. It is my life's work. If my past makes me unfit in some people's eyes, then so be it. But in the eyes of the children who now have food, education, and hope, my past is exactly what makes me ready. The room fell silent. Then slowly, applause rose. Amanda's eyes filled with tears, and Richard, watching from home, whispered proudly, "That is my son." That day the city understood. Cola Lawson was not just a name carried by adoption. He was a leader carved by trials. Years later, when Cola was fully grown and the foundation was flourishing, a message came to the mansion. His birth father was dying. Cola hesitated. Memories of pain and abandonment still lingered. But Amanda touched his hand. "Brother, forgiveness is not a one-time act. Sometimes it's a journey. Go, see him." Cola entered the small hospital room, the air heavy with medicine and regret. On the bed lay the man who had once left him to starve. His hair was white, his body frail, his breath weak. When he saw Cola, his lips trembled. "My boy," he whispered, I failed you. I have nothing to give you. Nothing but sorrow. But if you can, forgive me before I go." Tears burned Cola's eyes. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he stepped closer, holding the man's trembling hand. "I have carried the pain for years," Cola said quietly. "But today, I choose to forgive you. Go in peace. The chain of pain ends here." The old man wept softly, and for the first time in his broken life, he closed his eyes with peace. Cola left the room heavy-hearted, but freer than ever before. Amanda met him outside and embraced him tightly. "You've given him rest, and you've given yourself wings." Years later, the Lawson Foundation hosted its biggest event yet, a scholarship award ceremony for street children who had risen through its programs. The hall was filled with young boys and girls in neat uniforms, their faces glowing with hope. Reporters filled the back, donors filled the front, but Cola's eyes rested only on the children. When it was his turn to speak, Cola walked to the podium. He paused, scanning the hall, his gaze settling on a little boy in the front row who reminded him of himself. Barefoot once, invisible once. He smiled softly. "I once thought my story ended under a bridge," he began. "But God had other plans. He gave me a father who chose me, a sister who believed in me, and a family that taught me love is stronger than pain. Tonight I don't just see children. I see leaders, dreamers, and builders of tomorrow. And I promise you this, as long as I live, no child under this foundation will ever walk alone." The hall erupted in applause. Amanda wiped tears from her eyes as she scribbled the moment into her notes, ready to share it with the world. Richard, now older but strong in spirit, rose to his feet, clapping harder than anyone, and as the children cheered, their voices rose into a single chant. "Hope! Hope! Hope!" For Cola, it was no longer about surviving, or even about success. It was about planting seeds that would outlive him, seeds of resilience, kindness, and love. And so the boy who once danced to silence his hunger became the man who built a legacy to silence despair. A legacy not of riches, but of lives transformed. Sometimes, the richest legacy is not found in money or fame, but in love, the kind that heals, forgives, and transforms the world. Cola Lawson was once invisible, but today he shines in every life he touched. The boy who once danced to survive became the man who danced to give others hope. His story may end here, but his dance will live on forever. If this story touched you, let us know in the comments, and tell us where in the world you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to Folk Tales by Olivia for more emotional, dramatic, and unforgettable stories. Until next time, stay kind. Stay strong and keep watching